When the first video about who is buying the Ozarks crossed 372,000 views, the comments were not what you expect from a viral video. They were not surprised. That was the thing. Comment after comment said some version of the same sentence. We already knew. We saw it happening. We just couldn't explain what we were looking at. A neighbor sold to an LLC with a name nobody had heard of. A road that had always been open was suddenly gated. A piece of land that families had walked for decades was posted with no trespassing signs, and the name of a management company nobody could find anything about. That video answered who was buying. The question every one of those comments was really asking is what they are doing with it now that they own it. And the answer to that question is what this video is about. Spoiler, it is worse than what the first video showed, because the buying was just the beginning. Subscribe right now, hit the button and the bell. The buyers we identified in Part 1, the timber investment management organizations, the private equity funds, the foreign-linked entities operating through domestic subsidiaries. Do not buy land and sit on it. That is not how investment land works. You acquire an asset and you develop a return stream. In the Ozarks, the return streams have taken several specific forms, and each one is more alarming than the last. The most visible is the private hunting preserve. The hunting grounds near Willow Springs in Howell County is 2,500 acres of fenced and gated Ozarks hills in the heart of the region. Red stag from New Zealand, elk managed for genetics, a 5-star lodge with 26-foot vaulted ceilings, guided trophy hunts starting in the thousands of dollars. The gate at the entrance is locked to everyone who is not paid. The land is not accessible to the public under any circumstance. It was Ozarks land before it was a hunting preserve. The families who hunted those ridges and fished that creek for generations will not do either thing again without the access fee. This model, Ozarks land converted into an exclusive experience sold to wealthy clients from outside the region, is not unique to Willow Springs. Multiple operations across the southern and central Ozarks have enclosed thousands of acres under private recreational use. The land doesn't disappear from the map, it becomes a product, and access goes from a community arrangement to a premium purchase. Hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this story matters. The second return stream is harder to see. It requires knowing what is underneath the land, not just what is on it. The Missouri Walnut Company operates in Berry County and Taney County. In the Ozarks, it grows walnuts. It is registered to a business in China. When investigators in Missouri compared federal foreign land ownership disclosures to county property records, none of the farms registered with the federal government as foreign-owned appeared in county records with foreign addresses. The Chinese registered Walnut Company showed up in federal disclosures. What it did not show up in was local property records as foreign-owned. The two tracking systems, the ones that are supposed to tell the public who owns what, do not match. WH Group, the Hong Kong-based company that acquired Smithfield Foods in 2013, owns approximately 42,000 acres of Missouri farmland in 7 northern counties. The deal was made possible by a law change that happened, documented, on the record, 1 week before the transaction was announced. Missouri had a ban on foreign agricultural land ownership. The ban was removed on the House floor in the final hours of the legislative session as an amendment to an unrelated bill. The governor vetoed it. The legislature overrode him. The deal closed. Nobody who voted for that amendment has been willing to call it what the timeline suggests it was. Missouri passed a law in 2025 restricting future foreign land acquisition. The 42,000 acres were already owned. The walnut operation was already running. The third return stream is the one most people do not know is a return stream at all. The Ozark sits on top of the Ozark Aquifer, one of the largest freshwater systems in the continental United States, supplying clean water to millions of people across Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, and Oklahoma. The aquifer recharges slowly through the karst topography of the Ozarks. It does not replenish quickly. As of 2025, water planners across 16 southwest Missouri counties have calculated that the aquifer as currently used cannot sustain the region's projected growth through 2060. The city of Ozarks, Missouri, the city literally named after the region, is passing emergency legislation to connect to surface water sources because it can no longer rely on the groundwater alone. While that is happening, data center developers are announcing projects across rural Missouri in numbers that would have seemed implausible a few years ago. In early 2026, companies from Atlanta and Texas propose multiple data center campuses covering hundreds of acres each in rural Missouri counties. Google has approved a second Kansas City data center after the Port of Kansas City authorized billions in tax incentives. Data centers require extraordinary quantities of water for cooling. A single Meta facility in Kansas City uses up to 9.5 million gallons per day, the equivalent of 95,000 households, from one building. The Ozarks is next, not as a conspiracy, as simple geography. Rural Missouri land is cheap. Available power exists. There is no organized opposition yet. The pattern moves from the suburbs outward, and the Ozarks sits on the most significant freshwater aquifer in the region. Whoever owns the land above an aquifer controls access to what is beneath it. The buyers who arrived first understood this. The communities living above it are still catching up. The fourth return stream is the one that has been operating the longest and is the hardest to see because it looks like nothing is happening. When investment funds acquire large Ozarks parcels, they often enroll them in carbon credit programs. The trees sequester carbon. That sequestration gets measured, certified, and sold as credits to corporations offsetting their emissions. Microsoft, Google, Meta, and McKinsey have all made documented commitments to purchasing carbon credits from Appalachian and Ozarks-adjacent reforestation projects. For the land, this sounds like conservation. Trees are growing where extraction happened. Carbon is being sequestered. The marketing language is about healing and sustainability. For the communities surrounding the land, it means 125-year carbon sequestration commitments attached to parcels that were previously accessible for hunting, foraging, and the informal use that communities build traditions around. It means locked gates on land that was open. It means permit fees for activities that were free. It means a return stream for the investment fund and a reduction in community access that looks identical to every other form of Ozarks land enclosure, except this one is called green. The Ozarks has been through versions of this before. Timber companies stripped the hills in the late 1800s and left. The federal government acquired the degraded land during the Depression and called it the Mark Twain National Forest. The Lake of the Ozarks flooded the Osage River Valley in 1931, so outside electricity capital could run power to St. Louis. Fort Leonard Wood displaced the community of Bloodland in the 1940s, so the Army could train soldiers on Ozarks land chosen specifically for its exceptional groundwater. The mechanism has never changed. Outside interests identify something in the Ozarks that is worth more to them than what it is worth to the people living above it. They acquire it through whatever legal instrument is available. The community loses access. The return flows outward. The hills remain. What is different now is the scale and the speed. The timber companies moved in over decades. The current buyers have been moving in years. The land acquisition that took a generation to accomplish in the 1880s happens in a single LLC filing in 2024. The gate goes up in the same week the deed transfers. The permit fee notice arrives before anyone knew the land had changed hands. There are two things that happened between Part 1 and Part 2 that are worth knowing. The first is that Missouri passed a water export restriction law in 2025, specifically in response to documented proposals from neighboring states to access Missouri's water as their own aquifers fail. Kansas, which sits on a dying section of the Ogallala Aquifer, has been calculating how to pipe water from states to its east. Missouri had to pass a law to prevent its water from being exported. Not a theoretical threat, a documented one that triggered legislation. The second is that the USDA data on foreign land ownership in Missouri, when compared to county property records, shows systematic gaps. Federal disclosures say foreign entities own certain Missouri parcels. County records show no foreign addresses on those parcels. The tracking system that is supposed to tell the public who owns what has holes large enough that a significant amount of foreign-connected ownership may exist in records nobody can currently see. In 2025, the Missouri Rural Crisis Center testified before a legislative committee and described the situation this way: "Nobody knows exactly how many acres have been sold. There is no tracking. There is no enforcement. That is not an accusation. That is a statement of fact from the people professionally responsible for monitoring it." Part 1 asked who is buying the Ozarks. The answer was investment funds, foreign-linked entities, private equity structures, and outside capital operating through entities designed to minimize disclosure. Part 2's answer to what they are doing with it is locking it off, converting it to exclusive use, positioning it above a freshwater system, being watched by people with more money than the communities above it, enrolling it in financial instruments that make the closure look like conservation, and doing all of it faster than any public oversight mechanism can track. The people who live in the Ozarks always see it first. The comments under the first video prove that. What they have not always had is language for what they are watching. This is what you are watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell. Drop a comment. What has changed near you since part 1? Because the data cannot capture what the people on the ground already know. And we are still listening. Thank you for watching. The truth doesn't shout. It waits for you to look closer.